Welcome back to the channel. Thank you all for hanging with me on this Sunday. So I figured a little something out yesterday. That's not a giant, but that's like the third cast. So we're gonna keep it rolling here. That one looked pre-spawn. I'm in the same area that I had that big bite yesterday. I'm just fishing a little bit different. And I'm staying back a little bit further, closer out to the main lake than where I started yesterday. I kind of felt like I missed a lot of the good water. You know, the places where those bigger fish are coming. And there were a lot of boats in the back where I was fishing. As the day kind of went on, more and more boats got around me. So typically when that happens, you're not gonna go back there the next day and do real well. And that bite came exactly where those other two bites came. So right next to the seawall, kind of right in the corner of the dock and the seawall. So we missed a lot of those yesterday. You know, whenever you're fishing around seawalls and docks, you need about 3 lures. You need something you can flip, like a jig or a Texas rig. A buzz bait's one of my favorite seawall baits because typically those seawalls are in a couple of feet of water. So most of your baits, like a spinner bait or a chatter bait, just too shallow. And a lot of times lakes that have seawalls have a little bit of color in the water, so you need some type of commotion. Just always seems like the time of year that they get on the seawalls is perfect for top water. That one just slurped it. It was just gone. He just pulled it underwater. But I feel like that first hour on a full moon is crucial. First hour and a half. Then the fishing's gonna get pretty tough. But yeah, this is getting that big bite yesterday on a lake that, you know, it's a pretty special bite. When you catch a big one on a lake that doesn't have a whole lot of big fish in it, that's a major clue to what you should be doing. So I didn't really want to go try anything completely different. I just want to do this, what I did yesterday to catch that big one, just find more places that are like that. And so that was my pattern's a seawall. And I'm in the same area, but I think what I figured out yesterday was there weren't a whole lot of fish back where I had that bite. So start out where those fish are coming from, and that's going to be up here. And I've kind of talked about this in my last 2 videos, but you know, when you have fish that are close to the spawn, you really have a couple of options of like how steep you want the bank to be. So you can fish in water that the boat's sitting in 8 feet and you're pitching into 2, and you know there's going to be no fish spawning behind you. Or you can go dirt shallow where they could spawn anywhere, but more than likely they're going to be on targets like isolated wood, stumps, any type of wood that's been washed into the water, big enough to kind of stay in place. So first day I kind of kept my boat out a little bit deeper, pitching to the shallow places that was protected where they would spawn. And that was okay. We definitely got a lot of bites doing that. And then yesterday I had my biggest bite, basically up in the mud, fishing around the last little pieces of cover. Now I'm kind of doing a mix. I'm in that same area where I think some bigger fish are heading. But I know there's not going to be anything spawning out there. Yesterday there were bubbles coming off my buzzbait. The only downside of this is I haven't figured out if I can get bit out here. It's a lot of wasted time going around these docks. If these docks are out a little bit too deep, I've got 30-pound braid on this rod, which I like it because it casts a little further. But if I would be skipping around in this stuff, I'd probably go back to 50, which is what I typically always throw, but I just went to this 30 because I was making long casts with it. But 50 is probably better for skipping. You're less likely to backlash 50. Now the key right now is to figure out, are the sides of the docks away from the seawall any good? Because all 3 bites I've had in this creek, they've all been right on the seawall, on the angle of the dock. So coming down the side of the dock, right, like 1 turn on my handle, and the fish has got it, or paralleling it. So I like this little area right here because most bigger boats aren't going to take the time to come in here. A lot of times you come into something that a bass never sees a cast from this way. But the whole key is to figure out what's the best part of these. And is everything else dead water? Yeah, 30-pound braid's not skipping great. Probably go back to 50. 30 is great for like top water, walking baits, poppers. Anything you need to make a real long cast on. I'm gonna pitch around with a Texas rig just in case. But yeah, I was saying you really only need about 3 baits. Something like a buzz bait that you can fish fast on the surface, because again, most of the time you're in really shallow water with this technique. A swim jig, because it's a great follow-up if a fish just boils on your buzz bait or totally misses your buzz bait. Or if you just need something a little bit underneath the water column. You know, you would think of something on top and something that's this far underneath the water wouldn't be a big difference, but it is. Water column is basically everything. Basically everything when you get shallow fishing and lakes that have a little bit of a stain. It's crucial. And that's about it. I mean, if you have something where you can't fish either of those baits through, you know, maybe a frog on the deck for just a few casts. I got a spinner bait rigged up today because it's windy, and I got a crankbait and a wacky rig because those are a couple baits where I don't feel like if I can get a bite on anything else, or I know if I can get a bite, it's a big one. That's what I really like about that crankbait. I feel like I can get more bites on that crankbait than anything else. But really, it's simple fishing. You just got to cover water and make good casts. I mean, it's all about making the good casts. But yeah, I got bubble trail on the back of this today, so that's pretty good. I got a gold blade. I like a gold blade anytime there's some dinge in the water. I've got a real natural colored swim bait on there because I love a horny toad, and I think that's a great buzzbait trailer. I've caught more fish on that on the back of a buzzbait than anything, but if I'm not certain that there's really big shad in a lake, I've been to some places where they just don't bite it. I don't want to be throwing something that you won't get any bites on. You know, these little swim baits, every lake has a little shad. You know, they'll bite this. They'll bite this swim bait, little swim bait everywhere. All right, so we're definitely a lot shallower than I thought, and this is this shallow side of the pocket because I fished the other side. There's a little isolated piece of wood. So when you're in really shallow water, and I briefly talked about this earlier, they're going to get on a target. So when you're on a big flat, it is crucial when you see that isolated stick sticking up, whatever it was, a stump or a tree or just a piece of wood that floated in there, make repeated casts of that. In the month of April, so for this kind of fishing, I like the 30-pound braid because I'm making a little bit longer casts. You know, this would maybe be a situation if you were getting as many buzzbait bites as I think you can get right now. Maybe have a couple rods rigged up, one with that big horny toad on there because it skips a lot better, and then one with this swim bait because it, or maybe, you know, whatever, but have one rigged up with 30 and one rigged up with 50. One for the docks and one to make longer casts. Maybe have a couple different blade combos. I was losing some fish yesterday, which kind of made me feel like I might not have the right blade or color or something like that on there. I will say another positive of that horny toad is it's a lot more plastic, so it's a lot more for them to grab onto. That's kind of the perks of putting a soft plastic on the back of a buzzbait opposed to just a buzzbait with a skirt on it. So this one I got just a little swim bait on there, but I'm saying you could put a horny toad on there and that would give the fish a lot more to grab onto. They wouldn't just be able to see it better. They can also just get it when they inhale it, they can get it in their mouth better. That's a good sign your buzzbait hits the water. And keep your eyes in the water looking at the size shad you see jumping around. And if you see big gizzard shad jumping around, then, oh. All right. There's the buzzbait. Pick up that swim jig. Be ready. There's something chasing bait around there. See that little isolated piece of wood? Crucial when you get in really shallow water. Surprised I couldn't get that fish to bite that swim jig. They're liking that buzzbait, but they're just kind of slurping at it. But yeah, like I was saying, you know, doesn't hurt to have a couple buzzbaits rigged up, a couple different size blades, maybe a couple different trailers if you really want to. You know, the size blade always kind of depends on how the lake's fishing. You know, if the lake's fishing really tough, you're always going to get more bites on those little, smaller buzzbaits. You could definitely throw that little one in this type of situation because you don't have to make real accurate casts. A lot of times it's harder to put it where you want. My favorite size buzzbait just for casting accuracy is a 5/16. So we're definitely getting into the shallow part. It's as shallow as it was all the way in the back. That creek channel is still pretty deep, and it's right out there. We're not far from it. I think it's kind of swings over to the other side. I fish the other side, but you know, I don't know why fish sometimes do this. You know, I would think the other side would be the more obvious side, and it could just be they're biting better first thing in the morning. It could be the fishing pressure. Everyone fishes the deeper side because that's consistently where you're going to catch more fish. But when you have a lot of people fishing the same area, it's going to kill it. Fish want to be in this creek. The side that everyone doesn't fish could be better, even though it's not the better side. Less fish frequent this side. If you have like 10-to-1 fishermen on the other side, it's going to make this side better. You could also throw the frog or like a popper or something in those real high percentage places. I mean, you could fish a popper down this bank. I definitely would in May or June. Basically all through the summer, July, August. But those high percentage places with a lot of stuff blown in them, all that wood and maybe some pollen and other debris, that would be where I would go to the frog.